Welcome to episode 57 of the Rogue Bogues basketball series. Myself, Andrew Bogut, welcome, and Mike Procopio, Hoop Consultants. How's it going?
Bogues, what are you up to, man? I'm actually I almost finished first time ever, I almost finished a book in a day. Really good book written about like the 80s Celtics and Wish It Lasted Forever, it's called. And it just goes into like how the team was built and, talking about their coaches and Bird and McHale and Parrish. So if anybody's a big fan of the Celtics, that era of basketball, and it's really cool just sort of, the lifestyle back then versus now, as far as the hotels they stayed in, how they traveled. It's really good book. The guy who wrote it, Dan Shaughnessy, who's a really famous sports writer from Boston, the Boston Globe, and it's a really good book. So
he was on the beat during the 80s.
He was on the beat on the 80s and for the Boston Globe, and like he'd be in bars with these guys and talk to them. There's a lot more approachable. They didn't have the media rules back then, where like, oh, these players don't talk to anybody. But it was cool. It was interesting how he said like how Larry Bird handled media versus how Danny Ainge versus McHale. And, it was interesting. And then they went into the former coach they had, Bill Fitch, who actually Rick Carlisle worked under, who is very similar in styles. And they go into the whole thing, and then he resigned, and they hired Casey Jones, and then they won a championship with him. This guy Bill Fitch, and then like the players, just like he was on the players' ass all the time, and just really mean and like mean spirited. The guy died recently. It's like they just put him in the Hall of Fame, but he ended up going to the Houston Rockets. But they finally tuned him out. They hired Casey Jones, who's an assistant coach. But they just go into it like. They go into the whole travel thing and how they stayed in like Holiday Inns and stuff, like nothing like today. It's just really, you talk about like the WNBA and stuff and what they're dealing with like the travel and what they have to do. It's a lot similar, not pay wise, obviously yet, but like it's a lot similar to some of the things that they were talking about, but like how beat writers are right there, right? And they would talk to them and how they like, one instance where an NBA player would never do, a guy named Scott Wedman, who was a really good shooter. And they ended up like picking him up as a free agent. And he had like a stretch guy that worked on him that wasn't a team physician at all. And the team didn't really have many physicians or like physio guys or whatever. So like I guess he was like a pipe cleaner or something like that, like his regular job, or a plumber. I forgot which one. But then like, he was like stretching guys out, working on them. And then this guy, Shaughnessy, wrote an article about him. So Scott Wedman, there was a game where he scored like 15 or 20. And he goes, well, I'm not going to talk to you guys until this guy leaves. So a typical like NBA move you'll see today. So the guy left, but like 2 or 3 days later, they're on the plane because they travel together. And Scott Wedman went back and sat with him and said, hey, I just want to let you know, I apologize for what I said. It really hurt me what you wrote about my guy, because it really hurt him, because other players would work with him and then he got banished from the locker room and stuff. But like he explained it, like a lot of those players would take heat from the media. Some of them would just shun them the rest of their lives. But a lot of them came up to him and had actually educated conversations with the guy about why they're mad with him, or what that guy wrote, why it hurt them. And then they would actually talk that stuff out. But it was pretty interesting how all that sort of dynamic worked.
Yeah, it's definitely changed. There was still a small percentage of players that would do that, but generally it'd be fisticuffs or threats or like you said, shunning. So I think I respect the old school mentality of like there were some journalists, even when I played, there were some they'd write something kind of that a player wouldn't like or whatever, and then purposely go right up to him the next day.
Yeah.
And not hide from it. They're the ones I respected, because I was like, you know what, like you wrote about an article about someone who's playing bad, about whatever antics, whatever it is, but you're man enough to show up in the locker room and go face to face with them the next day. And the players were kind of like, they didn't like it, but they're like, for me, as much as I hated it in the moment, you look back and be like, at least he has the balls to show up and still talk to you and and maybe let you cuss him out, and he'll hear you out, or she. But there's a lot of journalists that they'll sit at the back of those huddles. You won't even know they're there, and they'll write something, and then you won't see him again for 2 months, and then you'll see him again. And so there definitely is a respect thing there. But anyhow, enough Celtics homerism again, pro. Opening another episode, but we have a retraction, and I think it's a good retraction because it's good news. But I mentioned last week on our pod that CJ Bruton had cancer. Now, he had cancer many, many years ago while he was playing. When he was playing for the New Zealand Breakers, and I guess I got sent a screenshot of a tweet saying that he had cancer, which I thought was, I think a lot of people thought was came back, or whatever the wording is that you use. I'll read the tweet that I used. It was from John Casey, who was actually on our NBL preview pod. This is how it was worded. It was, Adelaide coach CJ Bruton has revealed his cancer diagnosis as the 36ers campaign to raise funds for the Hospital Research Foundation. That's all it says. So I saw that. I got it sent to me by someone as a screenshot. And I guess my mistake for not clicking the link, but it was a screenshot. And then I thought, shit, CJ's got cancer. So gave him a shout out last podcast. And good news is he doesn't. The wording was a bit interesting because it seemed like he had cancer again. But I think once the link was opened, it was in reference to, he was revealing about his diagnosis 10 years ago, how it all went down and how emotional it was. And they're trying to raise money for Hospital Research Foundation there in Adelaide, who do some cancer research. So good news, pro. But we did, I did make a fuck up, so I want to put it out there. But like I said, this ends on a really good note that someone doesn't have cancer, pro. So we're in good stead.
Wow. I mean, yeah, the wording on these tweets are really weird. You know what I'm saying? I don't know if the guy was trying to be clickbaitish, but you could really. I do that all the time, and a lot of the people who put that stuff out there do it intentionally, but some people don't, but it's still not really like a clear sort of headline on it, and it's easy to sort of get turned around with these things. Hey, unlike most, you retracted though. Most media would just scroll right past it.
And it's a positive retraction. Like whenever you make a mistake about someone having cancer, that's a great thing.
Yeah. Without question.
I hope my fucking doctor does that to me one day if I have cancer. Like, oh, actually, we screwed that one up. You don't have it. Oh, great. Thank you, man. So, CJ's obviously recovering from COVID, I think, and should be back in the next game or two. If he hasn't, maybe coach yesterday, I didn't watch the game, so we'll see. Anyway, all right, teams of the week. This was a tough week, bro. I'm putting in a little tidbit for us.
Okay.
Your team of the week, either way, can only be 11 and up from now on. We're gonna scrub out. We're scrubbing out Portland, Sacramento, the Thunder, the Rockets. They're gone. Get them out of here. We don't want to discuss them anymore. And the Magic, Pistons, Pacers, and Knicks, they're gone. The Wizards are still floating there. We can almost put a line through them, but I want to start these team of the weeks both ways. I think we need to do it for teams that actually have a chance to be playing for something somewhat meaningful, if you classify the playing as meaningful. But let's put that little tidbit in starting next week. Just because I think we can both agree that, teams like the Magic could be the team of the very week every week, or the Pacers, or the Pistons, or even the Knicks have been playing well, actually. But other than that, so anyway, all right, my team of the week is the Milwaukee Bucks. I had notables of Boston, Denver, and Minnesota. But Milwaukee, they got some big game. They won some big games. Look, there were some injuries in some of the teams they played, but they can only beat what's in front of them. They beat Charlotte, Miami, Chicago, Phoenix, OKC, and Atlanta. So 5 out of 6 of those are playoff teams. 2 out of 3, or 2 out of 6, maybe 3 if you count Chicago on the top end of their conferences. So they're going to be probably going deep into the playoffs. So 6 good wins there, 7-3 in the last 10. They're playing real well. Their bench is starting to really click a little bit. I think they're starting to find their rotations. They just seem like it's starting to fit. It's starting to. They're healthy. Their rotations the way coach wants it to be. Let's not forget Giannis is once again having an unbelievable MVP caliber year. But the Milwaukee Bucks surging at the right time, pro, and they were at one point. I think they were out of the 10. No, they were 10 or 9 or 10 or 11 at one point early in the season without all their injuries. We knew they weren't going to stay there, obviously, but there were a little bit of worries about that championship hangover. But they've really bounced back well, and it looks like they're going to make a really good push. They're in second place right now, they've come a long way. They're 42 and 25. They're 2.5 games behind first, and they're 1.5 games clear of Philly, who are in third, Pro. But that is my team of the week. What do you got?
All right, so my team of the week is going to be the Minnesota Timberwolves. They are Bogues. They are playing. These guys are hot. They've won 7 out of their last 10. They're playing really well. Edwards is, killing it. Beasley playing really well off the bench. Obviously, other guys involved. Their bench has been playing well. And I think they're going to be a team that's going to be a little bit dangerous come playoff time. In the last couple of days, they've beat, they've lost to Orlando, which isn't the greatest, but they beat Oklahoma City by 30, beat Portland by 40, but they've been playing well, like up to this point, besides that one Orlando game. But I think they're really good. They're really winning games. And I think they got youth. I think they play hard every night. Those guys have finally figured it out with their bench and all. I think they're going to be a tough team. I really do. I think they're a team that could play out of the play-in at some point and maybe even get as high as 6. And I think they're going to be a tough out. What do you think about Minnesota, Bo?
Yeah, I like them. I feel like they're kind of the Atlanta or the New York of last season. I think they're in that realm. Like, I think they can surprise a lot of people. Can maybe get to a second round playoff series. And they deserve it. They've had a lot of bad years. They've finally rebuilt. They've got a solid core now. I think they got good role players. Like you said, they got a good mix of youth. Like Beverly. I think they've got a really good mix of what they're trying to do, different tools, especially for, sometimes playoff series to playoff series there can be different matchups where, a Beverly might not play as much in one series and the next series he's playing 40 because he's guarding James Harden or whatever it is, or, obviously they're in the West, so they wouldn't play them till the finals, but you get my point, right? So I like them. I think they're finally starting to. I'm still not 100% sold on them. Like I said at the start of the season, they need to show me a little bit more in the playoffs, but I'm starting to come around on them. I think Towns is really, letting the game come to him. I read an article today that a lot of teams are starting. They're hiding their center on their center or their 4, and they're trying to put a quick, agile guy on Towns, and then he's just gone down on the block and punishing people. And then you put a slow big like myself. Let's say we'll put a Bogut or a big strong big to guard him on the block. Then he takes you outside. So. Really, really versatile, and I think they've got a chance. I think they're still probably a piece or two away in the off season if they can get another veteran or someone that can really contribute, a second tier star to complement that group they have there, or a third tier star. I think they'll be primed to be potentially a second, third round team. But good pick up.
Yeah, I like. I mean, with like you said, with Russell Towns, Russell and Towns, Edwards, those are the 3, and then guys like Beasley, Vanderbilt, McDaniels is playing hard. Beverly, I think they're good. I don't think they're a world beater. I think you're right. I think they're 1 or 2 pieces away from really doing something. But I think that they're an exciting team that not a lot of people thought much of, me included. But I think Anthony Edwards is really coming on strong. And then, with the player Towns, like you said, he's really developed. And it takes sometimes it takes him a while. I was with him early in his career in China with those Nike trips. And I'll tell you what, the guy works his ass off, and he's strong, he can shoot it. He can drive it. He's he's pretty, not going to win defensive player of the year anytime soon, but the other stuff that he does is really good. And, I'm not really a big Russell fan, but, D'Angelo's been playing pretty well this year and, settling in. Those guys are winning games, and let's see if they could So to keep it up, who do you got as team of the week?
Oh, just quickly to finish on the Wolves, it doesn't
Oh,
look
I'm
like
sorry.
they can move up too much. They're 2.5 behind 6, and they're 3.5 behind Dallas. I don't think they're catching Dallas at 5. Maybe the Nuggets if the Nuggets completely implode. So it looks like, and I doubt they'll fall lower. The Clippers they're at 3.5 ahead of the Clippers who are in 8. So it looks like they're going to probably face either the Warriors or the Grizzlies in the first round. So, and I tell you what, that the Warriors I'm not too worried about if they're healthy, but they could pose a bit of a scare. Not too much of a threat, but it may be 6 games, maybe 7 games against the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies are still a young team that haven't. They're exciting, they're fun, but we haven't seen it in the playoffs yet with Ja Morant, right? So that's where his coming out party is going to have to be to solidify himself even more as that's where you make your stage. Steph made his stage, whatever, right? So that'll be I wouldn't say a scary one, but it's not you'd rather be facing the Clippers or the Lakers than the Timberwolves, in my opinion, if you're the Grizzlies at 3. So we'll watch that space, but. Yeah, my team of the week. It was a hard one this week, bro. There was a lot of teams that split the week or went 2-2, but I had to go with Cleveland. They went 3-7. So not a horrible week, and some of their losses weren't awful. But yeah, they were probably the most logical to go after, and you look at some of their losses. Just as I scroll this up here, they weren't dismal. They lost to Miami last game. They beat Indiana and Toronto before that, but then lost 3 straight, which was Minnesota, Charlotte, and Philadelphia. So just on trending form, probably the last 10 games, they haven't been great. They've been really inconsistent. They've kind of had, they'd win 4 straight, lose 3 straight, lose 1, win 1, lose 1, win 1, lose 3 straight, win 2 straight, lose 1. So they're struggling to find a bit of that consistency that they had early on in the season. They had multiple 7-8 game win streaks at different points in the season. So they're kind of, I'm not too worried about them. I think they'll be okay when it's all said and done. But right now, they're sitting in 6th. So they were almost at 3rd at one point a couple of weeks ago, if you remember correctly. But the East is now starting to take shape. I think with Philly retooling as well. Brooklyn will start to surge as well, so it's going to be interesting to see where they end up. But they're 4 games clear of Brooklyn, who are in 8. Toronto, they're 2 games clear on, who are in 7. So they could potentially drop down into that play-in realm, and that's going to be interesting to watch, bro.
Yeah, like you said, they were hot early. For sure, they were playing really well. Injuries have really hurt them. Sexton, missing Sexton for the year, and they missed Allen for a little bit. Rondo was out. Rubio obviously losing him for the year and then trading him. It's been a rough climb. It's been an up and down season for those guys. I think they're still going to be pretty good in the playoffs. I still think they play hard. I really like Allen. I really like Mobley. Garland's played well. Obviously I'm a big Rondo fan. Kevin Love has sort of fell into his own and sort of found a rhythm and a role for that team. But yeah, they've definitely has fallen on some hard times lately. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with them.
What do you got?
I've got the Indiana Pacers. I'm going to play my bottom 5 card the last time of the season. So, I don't know if they're really trying to win games or not. I know they made the trade and they've got Halliburton and Hield and the guys that they sort of want, maybe some fresh blood in there. But losing to lost to Cleveland yesterday, your guys, and then they beat. They lost to them on Tuesday. They lost to Washington by 10. And they're just not playing well. They haven't had many games this week, but even before that, they were losing. So I think I don't know what they're doing. I don't know if they're just losing because look, they've got these new guys and they're going to lose and try to get draft picks and high picks. But it wouldn't surprise me if they were doing that. But they're just not playing well right now. They're just not in a good place. Maybe the guys are saying, "Hey, look, season's over. We got 15 games or so left," and they're just sort of riding it out. But I don't really sort of like watching them play the last few games. I think, they got to sort of find another gear, but it is the end of the year. They've got not a lot to play for. So, how that goes, Bogues. So
Yeah,
I
22
don't
and
know.
45. They're in full tank mode, obviously.
Yeah.
They can't catch the Pistons, I don't think, unless they absolutely implode. They're 4 games ahead of the Pistons in 14. The Magic are all the way down there. They're a half game behind or ahead if you're playing draft picks. They, the Magic definitely look like they have that locked up, and then you got the Rockets who have won a few games of late. I don't think the management would like that too much, bro. But yeah, the Lakers always will get you a win at the right time. But yeah, it's going to be. It's going to be interesting to see where all the picks land, what the Knicks do as well. The Knicks were playing well this last week and then lost a tough one in Memphis, but they've been playing really well, I thought, but just too little too late. They could still scrape in maybe if things bounce their way, but I highly doubt that. But yeah, the draft pick lotteries are going to be starting up, and it looks like the Magic are up there with Houston as a favourites, and then you got obviously Pistons, Pacers, who should be in contention. The Thunder might scrape in as well. So and Sacramento, lost 3 straight as well. So they could have been in contention for a team of the week. All right, we'll move on to our guy Pop. Becomes the all-time winningest head coach in NBA history, bro. 1,336, 1,336. He passed Don Nelson. I mean, what do you hear about it? Have you heard anything in your circles about how much longer he wants to coach? Because we've heard the last 5 years, one more year. Doesn't want to do it anymore. Doesn't want to do it anymore. I can tell you that this record meant a lot to him, because this is a main reason why he's still continuing to coach a team that's slash lottery bound slash playing. But yeah, what are you hearing? Do you think he's going to keep progressing on, or he's going to just start drinking some of those $1,000 million bottles of wine he's got stashed away there in the house?
You know how the Spurs are. They're like J. Edgar Hoover. You're not going to get anything out of them as far as intel, but I haven't heard anything as far as what he wants to do. Obviously he's been getting progressively more grumpy year in and year out, and about this thing or that thing. I do think he does enjoy the young guys and coaching and try to mold people and things. The problem is that as a competitor, it can't be fun when your team's not very good. There's not really a lot on the horizon. They can be like, you know what, like, we're gonna, revolve our whole team around this player, and this player or these players are gonna take us to the next level. I mean, Dejounte Murray, we've talked about, he's probably their best young player, and then you get guys like Keldon Johnson, and it's just not enough. It's just not enough as far as to, all right, you're going to hang on 2 or 3 years because this is going to happen. It's not like they're a bottom 2 team where they're gonna have a chance for this juggernaut draft pick to take them to another level. They're just, no one really wants to go there as far as big time free agents. They don't have these draft picks that could really help them. We've talked about this before. It's not like they have the Duncan Ginobili, Parker deal where they could just keep on revolving players around those guys, Kawhi and all that. So I don't know, maybe another year, 2 tops, but I can't see him going all that, that further as far as what he's, going further with this. At his age, he's done the wins record. I don't think anyone's going to catch him anytime soon. So I mean, that's a hell of an accomplishment and a hell of a career, and well respected coach, and gold medal, Olympics and all that. But yeah, I don't foresee him going all that much further. But I haven't heard anything. But man, is he fucking grumpy. I told you we played them in the playoffs, and it is probably him his whole career, not just now, but we played them in the playoffs, Both He would call multiple timeouts and not even talk to his team and just bitch out Tony Parker. Like fucking rip him a new. I'm looking over and I'm like, I'm not even like looking at what we're doing in the huddle. I'm looking at him. He is fucking destroying Tony Parker and doesn't talk to his team for 2 seconds in the huddle. It just fucking rips him for
And that was
2 minutes.
post all the chips, right?
Yeah, this was like, I want to say 14,
Yeah.
maybe 30. Yeah, like, nah, 30. Yeah. No, maybe it was, yeah, I think it was like 14.
Yeah,
We're
so
in
he's
the
got a
playoffs,
few
like
chips
14.
under his belt. Yeah. And he's still not good enough for a good old Pop, right?
Oh, man, it's crazy. Yeah, but, it is what it is. But hey, like I said, hell of a career. It's great, but not, I think it's coming to an end. What do you think, Bogues?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, obviously, congratulations to him because it's a hell of a mark to make to do that in the the greatest basketball league in the world. But I'm not sure. Like, I agree with you. I think he does look grumpier as days go on. He does. The halftime interviews that they've basically stopped doing with him. Just like we're not even going to ask anymore, or they get an assistant to do it because they're just like, no, we're good. I'm not sure. Like you said, what would be the incentive for a guy like that to continue to be coaching a team that's fringe playoff playing lottery? Probably at least for maybe I think they should be a playoff playing team next season with another year of growth for the young guys. And a little bit of cap space. But yeah, I agree. I'm not sure because as players and coaches, that when I was in the league, you'd always hear he's going to be done soon. He's going to be done soon, or he's going to transition into the GM front office role, or the president, or they're going to move him into some sort of role, and they're going to kind of nurture the next blood to run the Spurs for the next 20, 30 years, and it just never happens. So I don't know. Maybe they haven't found their guy or girl. There were rumors that it was supposed to be a girl, wasn't it, Pro, at one point? So that didn't happen. So I'm not sure how much longer he goes on, but yeah, I don't think he he's probably thinking too much about that in a way where he's discussing it with many people. You know what I mean? I think he knows, and like you said, the cards are close to his chest. The Spurs maybe know. But I'd give him another couple of years. He'll eclipse that record, and then I guess the next question is, which coach do you think has the best chance to get close to that record?
Oh boy,
because Steve Kerr's I just looked it up. He's at 421 wins already, and he's only coached 8 years. So times that by 3, he breaks the record, right? And that's nowhere near as many years as Pop has coached. Pop's in his third decade, right? So, I mean, it's Doc Rivers maybe. I'm not sure, but if you had to pick a guy, who would be a guy?
I'd probably say for regular season wins, I would say probably Doc Rivers might have the best chance because look,
he has 1,000.
He has 1,000. Yeah, you have to catch a wave for a long time. Like Pop, right off the bat, had Duncan and Robinson, and then he transitioned from that to get Parker and Ginobili, and then Kawhi, and he rode a wave from like 1998 to 2000 and I don't know what 2016, 17 of like juggernaut team. Never really had to face adversity, and that's a long time. That's literally 19 years of dominating teams, and I don't have the numbers in front of me. So maybe I'm wrong, and maybe he had a year or two, but I think he was very good in those like 19 years or so. And he's still okay now in the last few. I think with Kerr, I think that team in the next few years is going to transition to something very much different than what you see today. I think Steph's going to slow down, Clay's going to slow down, and now the young guys that they have on their roster are decent. Like they have a chance to be, pretty good with, with the guys they have like Kuminga and Wiseman, who knows? But like Draymond, Clay, Steph, So what's Kerr gonna do then? Like that's the only thing. He's got 400 plus wins now, but like
he could be that championship team, Pro. That team that every championship team full of stars says we want that guy.
yeah, exactly. So that's what I'm saying. Like Phil Jackson, like he had roles, like he had Chicago, he had LA, where he had those juggernauts. Look, this league is filled with good coaches, no question about it. But you only win games because of your talent for the most part. You're not out X and O somebody to win an extra 15 games a year. That stuff's all media bullshit. Like you need talent or you don't win. We've seen it. We've seen Phil Jackson get his brains beaten. We've seen Steve Kerr get his brains beaten. We've seen Doc Rivers get his brains beaten. We've seen Pop get his brains beaten, all when they didn't have talent. And I think that you have to be really lucky to get on top. Now, Don Nelson coached for a long time. He had a lot of really good teams where like 50 wins, 55 wins. Then he had a few really good teams.
And he had horrible too. He had the other side too, right?
Yeah, he did. He did. But a lot of these guys that's coached forever that were high on that list, Like they had to have a lot of years where they were pretty good, and because Don Nelson had a lot of losses, and I don't know what his winning percentage was, but it wasn't great. And compared to somebody who you expect to be up top. Doc Rivers, now he could ride a wave for another 4 years or so if they keep Harden and Embiid together.
In Philly,
So
yeah.
so I mean, that's the thing. Like, there are some really good coaches that never get their due because they never really had great teams. Then you had these guys that were decent coaches that rode it, forever, and then had this great stuff. Like, Phil Jackson ain't coaching. He's not fucking grabbing like the Washington Wizards to 65 wins. I don't give a fuck if he runs the triangle, the trapezoid, or the fucking isosceles triangle, offense. It doesn't matter. Without Kobe, without, Jordan, without, all those Pippen, without all those great Shaq, without all those great players that he's coached, I can't see it. Maybe a Spoelstra. I haven't even seen what Spoelstra is as far as the win total, but he's going to ride a wave of really good teams for a while. And he's very young, so I don't know how long he wants to coach for. But it's interesting though when you talk about who's got a chance to to eclipse this stuff with the wins. But you need luck. You need a great you need some great players that are young that stays with you for a long time. And now with these young players, Bogues, none of them want to stay in one place too long. So it's hard to really
So is the 1336 is that not including playoffs and finals?
a good question. I don't know I don't know what they count. I don't know if it's regular season or total. It's probably total, right?
Yeah, I think it's total. Yeah, I think it is total.
Yeah.
Because I noticed you mentioned regular season wins, but I'm pretty sure it's total. So that obviously, if you're a playoff team or a deep finals team, that gives you a pretty good bump up on your all-time wins.
No doubt. So if you could, because you're playing what? An extra. You might
20, 30 games.
Extra,
20, 30 wins. Like if you're going 6 games in each series and then go to a finals, you're getting close to mid-20s there. So that definitely helps. But that means you are winning, so you are doing well. But yeah, I agree with you on the coaching thing. I think a good coach might squeak out 5 more wins for you, maybe in a regular season, maybe. But yeah, these people that think a coach is going to automatically tax on 15 wins, you don't see Vegas, changing someone's win ratio by 15 because a really good coach signed at some team, right? Like they're looking strictly at the talent, and they might give you a bump of 3 or 4 or 5, but if you're a shitty team, like Phil Jackson comes out of retirement and coaches the Detroit Pistons, like they're not moving the needle much. Like the betters aren't moving it, and that's usually what you look at for true reality and blunt, honest truth about a team is generally where they sit in the betting market, right? You can look at all that analysis and listen to podcasts like ours about what we say, but if you want point blank, they are wrong at times, but you want the truth for the most part, the bettors aren't going to get it wrong because there's a shitload of money on the line. So that's always something to look at. But yeah, an interesting one. I think Steve Kerr's obviously shot out of a cannon for his first 8 years of his coaching career and just fell into a pot of gold and doing very, very well with it. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if the breaks come off and they they start just going 500 seasons or whatnot and just seeing who's going to catch pop one day. I mean, it's a long time.
Bogues, he had 170 playoff wins.
Yeah,
170. Pat Riley 171. Phil Jackson's got 229. To his record. So yeah, I mean, if they do count playoffs, which I assume they do, that's a lot like that you could add to it. But it's a lot of luck involved with this stuff. You have to have the roster. They have to have the roster, and you have to have the horses, and they got to stay long enough to really dig into that win total. So that's tough, man. I think Doc Rivers has a chance. He's about 300 wins shy. I mean, I don't know how long. I don't know how much.
But Pop's still coaching though. Pop's still coaching too.
Yeah,
so
Pop's still coaching.
The numbers are going up. Yeah, no, he should close to probably go 1.7, 1.8 more on what Pop is doing right now because he's got a good Philly team. But yeah, I mean, he's coached 2,030 games as well. So he's 1,336 and 694. It's an insane amount of basketball games. 30 odd years of coaching.
I think Kerr, no doubt. I think Kerr or Spoelstra probably has a really good chance in one of those two. Especially if they're going to coach for a lot longer. If they're going to coach another 15, 20 years, I think they'll have a chance. But Yeah, it's tough, man. That's a good question though. That's a good. We never really talk about that too much, and that's a pretty good sort of decent talking point
Well,
about what
Spoelstra's
goes in.
he's at 652 and 447, so he's 652 wins, so he's halfway there. So he could possibly do it too. You forget that he's been around for 14 odd years. Like, he kind of snuck in there when after Van Gundy transitioned out and whatnot, and he's held down that post. So you kind of forget about him sometimes in these conversations. So that's a very good name to bring up. But all right, moving on to the next thing. So LeBron, pro, is I know we give him a lot of shit for a lot of different reasons, but you can't fault his basketball prowess. He's leading the league in scoring at the moment, pro. I don't know if you know this, but he's, albeit by point 0.03, but he's leading the league. He's at 29.71. Embiid is at 29.68, and then Giannis 29.66. So there's a lot to happen between now and the end of the season. But to do that at 37, pro, and I know he's taken one end off, which he clearly is. Like, he's not guarding at one end. The Lakers play no defense. If you're a LeBron fan, I apologize, but if you watch the games, he's clearly conserving energy for the offensive end, and by all means, their season's basically a nothing burger. They might get into a play-in, might get to the playoffs if they're lucky, if they get two good games and play real well. And he's conserving everything for getting his stats inflated, rightfully so. He should be allowed to do that if he wants to, because that's kind of all he can really salvage out of this season. But yeah, I mean, 29.71 a night at 37 is that does deserve some praise. Regardless, you still have to go out there and do it. So I thought I'd give him a quick shout out and say it's been pretty impressive to watch that at 37, pro.
And also, like, you could fault the guy, and we all do. We all talk. We all take shots at him, for one reason or another. But the guy doesn't want to be embarrassed, as far as his team, right? In the sense that, look, they're not going anywhere. There's no doubt about it. They're not. I don't care what he wants to say in social media or in the media. Team's not going anywhere. That's just sort of how it goes. But I think that he has to do this just to keep the games like respectable, to keep it even in games against the Houston Rockets or teams like that, or Washington or Indiana. Like, he needs to get out there and score 35 a night for them just to have a chance. And look, Westbrook isn't playing well. Davis is out. The rest of the group really, Carmelo's trying, but come on, the rest of the group just isn't very good. So he's got to go out there and not play any defense and try to score 40 a night. Because if he doesn't do that, they can't beat anybody. Well, they just can't beat anybody. They're not a good team. And it's not really bashing them. It's just sort of what our eyes are seeing and what the numbers are telling. And yeah, it is amazing at 37. Like, you watch the great ones and how they sort of, look, Jordan did it. Jordan could score 50 in his high 30s. He could score 50 in a game here and there. And, Kobe could go off. But at 37, to be averaging 29 a game, that is impressive. Like, though, I don't think Kobe, I got to look it up. I don't know what Kobe and MJ scored like later on in their career, but I don't think it was 29. This
No, definitely it wasn't. Not at 30, not at 37, not at 37.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's amazing.
Jordan had that 50 ball with Washington, but I don't believe he wasn't leading the league in scoring, or even in contention to lead the league in scoring. He had a lot of nights where he was, I remember those games because I was in college, 4 for 18, 5 for 20. He had a lot of those nights. LeBron's, just continuing to put it together. And, I know Washington aren't great, but that performance was impressive. He just said, you know what, I'm just going to turn this on, give the fans a show, and knock down some big threes for him. So that's been interesting to watch. I don't think that will be matched. And I think the StatMuse did something saying that the next highest PPGs for someone at 37, I think, was Kareem, and that was 14 points a night. I think it was.
Yeah.
So that tells you, man, like he's almost doubled him. Oh, he has doubled him. Sorry, 14 point, so 29, which is just crazy. At 37 years old.
At MJ, so at MJ at 38, averaged 22.9, and at 39, averaged 20. I mean, you look at that and you're like, wow, that's pretty good. But that's 8 points a game less than this guy.
And the rebounds and assists.
We see.
LeBron would be the high in both
6
of them.
rebounds. Yeah, 6. So he's averaging, MJ averaged 6 rebounds, 4 assists, and then LeBron is averaging, let me see, LeBron's averaging 8 rebounds and 6 assists.
Yeah, yeah.
But whatever protein shake he's on, he needs to market the shit out of that thing. Because at 37, this fucker's coming on, like he's 18 years old. And it's amazing. It is. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of the guy, but I am a fan of his talent.
Yeah,
and the guy's a talented motherfucker.
Yeah, we got to appreciate it because he's going to be gone soon. I'm not looking forward to watching all the antics with Bronny and what he does to a team that's going to make that drafts his son, and then I'm not interested in all that. I'm not a fan of that, but if that's what he wants to do, he's one of the greatest ever played. By all means, go and do it. Who am I to say not to? But I got to respect his body of work and everything that he's done. So that's been fun to watch. I'll ask you: do you think he remains on top as a scoring leader by the end of the season, Pro?
Oh no! I think I don't really think so. I think the way Embiid's playing and the numbers he's putting up.
Well, it's Embiid and Giannis. It's Embiid and Giannis, and Jokic was up there. He's fallen off a little bit. I think he will, Pro. Here's why: he has nothing else to play for right now.
Good point.
And that's why I think he's just gonna gun. I really do. I think he's gonna really just go out there and gun and have bad shooting nights and still get 30s in him. I think he's gonna salvage something out of this season, and it's gonna be, I'm 37 and I just led the league in scoring. So I think he's got a really good chance, because don't forget, they're not really a good team. I think Embiid's hurt by the fact that now he's got James next to him for the scoring title. I really do. I think that affects it a little bit. They'll win more games, but I think it could affect his individual stats. And I said that when that trade happened. How will this impact his MVP running and all that? Because you've got a bona fide superstar next to you. Giannis is the curveball, because they do everything through Giannis, so he could pip him. But I think the Lakers games are just so much more low stakes at this point. They know they're going to be a play-in. They're going to try to shock the world from a plane. So I think he's just going to go gung-ho. I think he really will. And like I said, they're not buying into the defensive end. They're not grinding out playoff-type possessions. He's saving himself on one end. So I think he might. I think he might remain at top. That's just a gamble that I would be willing to take. I think when it's all said and done, barring injury and everything, I think LeBron will be a scoring champ. So we'll watch his space. Who you got? You think Embiid's going to still get it?
I'll tell you who the fuck's going to get it is Jock Lawndale. He's got 11-2 right now in 10 minutes of action tonight against the Indiana.
Free Jock Landale.
Yeah.
Hashtag.
There he is. 11 points. Our guy.
Right on cue. Right on cue.
Right on fucking cue. No, I think, he's going to score a shitload of points. You are right about that. And I say it because he's got to do it. And he wants to do it. Come on. He wants that top scoring champion thing. No doubt about it on top. But he needs to do it to keep them in, because he's going to get, he's going to get booed off the stage there. It's not going to be pretty there. And he's got to try to do everything that he can to keep those guys even in close games. And yeah, I think I think you're right.
Oh, you're arguing against yourself. You've turned yourself against yourself. I like it.
It ain't the first or the last time. Let's be honest.
I like it. I got you over to the light side. Nice. Okay.
Yeah.
The Wizards pro are discussing or rumored to be considering bringing back John Wall. Would you do it, pro?
Not if you pay me $1 million fucking dollars. I would.
Why would they do it? This has to be fluff, right? Like why? I mean, you've gone somewhat younger to an extent. You have some good pieces in Kuzma and whatnot, Porzingis. Why would you even consider this?
Look, he's got a lot of history in the town. They drafted him as a young high school kid. I'm sorry, 1 year at Kentucky. And, he's got history there. And there is history in the organization. And, he meant a lot to that town for a while. It's sort of like not quite Iverson to Philly, but he was there for a long time and he had deep roots there. But it didn't end well. And look, he's not a guy that's really great for your morale, especially when you're trying to battle over some things. You don't know what's going to happen with Bradley Beal. I don't know where the report came from, but both of them are saying, yeah, we'll play with each other. That's great. It didn't work so fucking great a few years ago, if anybody remembers. And everybody reverts back to who they really are in the NBA. Like you could say all the right things, oh, I worked on my shot in the off season. I became a great guy. I found God, all this stuff. But 20 games later, the guy who can't shoot still can't shoot. The guy who's not a good teammate, getting fight in the locker room and spitting in people's faces. The guy who found God, beat up some girl. Like all this stuff reverts back to who these people really are, who they are. And he was a little bit of a pain in the ass. He was a big pain in the ass at the end. And they got rid of him, and they found any trade that they could find to get him out of town. And I just wouldn't take the guy back. Look, you don't know what's going to happen with Bradley Beal if he's going to stay or not. You've got Porzingis, you got Kuzma, you've got some okay young players, Hachimura, Gafford's okay. You get, I don't know what CRISPR's going to end up doing in his career, but like you got some okay players. Why would you go that way? You've already, look, you got the Westbrook, you had to take Westbrook back for him. And then you lucked out and you got this trade that brought you Kyle Kuzma, who's putting up, 17 and 8 in career numbers for you. And KCP's actually decent too, but like now you got that piece. And then you've got these young guys. You're going to have a draft pick. You're going to have all this stuff. You don't know what Porzingis is going to do. You're definitely going to have Porzingis probably for at least another year. So you don't know where that's going to lead. He's averaging 19 and 7 as a Wizard. So like, how would you bring that on? Why would you bring John Wall on? I could see why the Lakers do it. I could see why the Lakers would want him because they just rearrange the deck chairs of the Titanic. They go from one train wreck to another, from Westbrook to him. But why not? Well, they got nothing to lose. But like Washington, you're trying to dig out of the trenches. You're trying to dig out of the dirt. And you got a couple of decent pieces. You got a new coach that's doing a pretty good job. I just don't know why you would bring him back. I mean, for nostalgia reasons, I don't understand,
Yeah, no, I just plus like you feel like it was his town for so long. Does he come back there and then have that mentality still in the locker room? Like this is still my shit, So I think they're in a point where they need to rebuild. Just start tweaking it. I don't think they need to blow it up. They've got some good pieces there that they can build around. But start going young and rebuilding your next John Wall. But yeah, I saw that and I was like, why would you even consider that? I mean, he's not a veteran presence. He's not a guy that's going to come in and be happy with 20 a game or whatever it is, 20 minutes a game off the bench or whatever, even if he's starting, not playing a limited role. So I don't see why you do it. The Lakers thing is just hilarious because I'm just like, they're both, him and Russ are a little bit different players to an extent. I think John's got a better three-point shot that's a little bit more consistent than Russell. Not a consistent three-point shot, but then Russell. But they're similar players. They attack the paint, quick guards that want to get in. They're kind of always around that triple-double mark at times. John Wall's had some big nights statistically before. So like you said, they're very alike in my opinion. So I don't think that fixes their problems. And I think their aging roster is a big issue. They need to get some youth there. So we've discussed that at length. But just one I scratched my head with. All right, Nick Stauskas. Did you see this? This was a great story. Really, really cool story. So for those not familiar, Nick Stauskas was a top 10 pick many years ago. He's been playing, we had him on our shortlist, funnily enough, pro, with as a hopeful import we could get to come out here and play for the Sydney Kings. But he was like, no, all his people were like, no, he's staying in. If he doesn't pan out in the G League, he's just not gonna come overseas. Doesn't want to go overseas, and we'll try him because we're like, man, he's a bucket. We really liked him. But anyway, he was on record as saying that this was kind of going to be his last season in the G League. He's going to give it one more shake and then call it a day. And then he goes out and has 57 one night and 43 the next night, and gets signed by Boston Celtics pro on a multi-year deal. Now I'm sure it's not all fully guaranteed and whatnot, but fantastic story.
Yeah, it goes to show you, Bogues, how hard it is to make this league, to make the NBA. And look, he had a pretty good college career. He didn't have a great college career. He played at Michigan for 2 years, was a first-round pick. And I remember watching him in summer league, and, just this kid who could shoot a little bit. He was physically outmatched. He can't really go by people. Defense is a problem. He was always a good shooter throughout his whole career. Shot 44% in college. and he just never could, find his niche. It wasn't like Jimmer Fredette, who was like a complete scoring machine in college, and then he goes to China and could score 80 in a game. He's not one of those. Now he did a couple of those in the G League the other night, no doubt about that. But like it just goes to show you, like, you're a good high school player, good college player, drafted eighth, you know, eighth by the Sacramento Kings, and just can't find your rhythm. And then you get traded, and then you get traded again, and then you get cut, and then you got to go to Spain, and then people forget you. And like, this is a good player, good kid, does everything right. It just can't find one of 510 spots in the NBA for a little bit of a period of time. And it goes to show it's just really hard. When people just take for granted how they just think it's easy to make the NBA, you just got to put up some points and then you're there. You got to, and then once you're there, you've got all these people trying to take your spot. And this guy just battled through. I could see why he would want to quit. It's really like, you don't understand. Like, everything goes well for you, and then you turn around and then you blink your eye, and then everybody forgets you. You're done, and no one wants to bring you in anymore. Your agent's not returning your call. Nobody wants to bring you in anymore. You're just like, you're yesterday's news. And this guy battled back. I don't know how long he'll stay. He might stay another 2 weeks and he's out. He might stay another year. He's out. Who knows? But it's ultra competitive. You got to continue to almost reinvent yourself. Like, in those, like, look, like Luka Doncic, Greek Freak, all these guys, LeBron, Kobe, Durant, those guys are great players. They never have to worry about this stuff. But like, for 60%, 70% of the league, literally playing paycheck by paycheck, don't know if there's going to be a red tag in their locker and they're going to be cut the next day or traded or waived or stretched out. And like, and NBA teams really don't care, to be honest, because they know there's a million guys to take the spot. But I read about the story. I followed them for a little bit, and I read the story, and it just goes to show it's just a tough existence in the NBA for a lot of players that people don't read about, because like, it's not a sexy enough story for ESPN or somebody to tweet about, or but it's just really tough. Would you agree? Like, I mean, you've been around it so long.
Yeah, 100%. And he gets drafted to a fucking dumpster fire of an organization, and who knows if that had an effect, right? Like, sometimes that can have an effect. You go to a team that doesn't know whether they're coming or going, they haven't had success, like, and it can affect you and your psyche, and then you've got a bad teammate or a star on the team's kind of, we heard those stories with Fredette and Cousins, right? You just don't know what else is going on, and sometimes it's circumstance. You're a victim of circumstance or timing, or maybe the year after you left that club, a coach came in that would have liked the way you played or didn't like the way, and that's the toughest thing with all this. It's just he was a victim of circumstance, went to, like I said, a dumpster fire of an organization, both winning, both development-wise, both, probably communication, letting him know what he needs to do, probably was just like, what do I need to do? I have no idea. And it's just great to see him. He's 28 years old. He's 29 in this year, and he's finally got an opportunity to get back his foot back in the league and give it one more shake. But it feels like it got to a point where he was like, you know what, I have nothing to lose. I'm just going to go out there and play. And if I get picked up, I get picked up. And he ended up getting picked up, and you hope you can stick for the Celtics, as even if he's on that as an 11, 12, 13 guy and waving a towel and comes into a big playoff game and knocks down some threes, then all of a sudden he starts to solidify a role for himself as a professional, a guy they like in the locker room. And I think he'll be all those things from what I've heard about him. I heard he's a really good kid, but just couldn't find his way. So I love these stories. I obviously didn't go that route. I was that route probably more in the junior level, high school level, and then in the pros I had a pretty steady route for 10 or 11 years, and then got hard towards the end with moving around and whatnot. But yeah, man, it's especially when your livelihood's on the line. You got a kid. He's probably got a wife and a girlfriend or a baby, and moving all that around and living out of a suitcase. Those guys that we would bring in always around this time or just before this time around deadline. Like a veteran that we're going to sign that's been out of contract, or some guy from the G League, and you bring him up for 48 hours and then just, see you later, we don't like you actually. It's just like, it's a human meat market, and it is, and that's the reality of the NBA. And I'm not saying that it should be changed. It is the reality of you're getting paid a lot of money to do this, but there is a flip side of it that is brutal, and they're usually, that, like Pro said, the 60, 70% that people don't see and read about on ESPN are the ones that really cop it at times, and it's tough. It's very, very tough.
I agree.
All right, just to finish off the NBA stuff. So Zion's lost 25 to 30 pounds, bro. Fact or fake news? I'm going to jump early on the segment, but that's what we're being told. Ben Simmons was on some podcast or something, spruiking it as well. They said reportedly he went from the Mountain Dews to Diet Mountain Dews, and that's what did it. I can't confirm that rumor, but that's what I've heard.
I thought he missed a meal or two. Probably skipped 2 meals and weighed himself right away. But no, I mean, who knows? Like, he's so big that, like, 30 pounds. I saw a couple of pictures of him, and I think, I don't know if it was recent pictures or what have you, but he was like shooting in. He had some like t-shirts. So you didn't really see him. He had like a bulky t-shirt on, so you don't know. But I could see him lose that. I mean, he was in Portland that long and hired personal trainers. Maybe. Why not? Let's just say he did. The problem is, Bogues, is he going to keep it off? Like, you could come in and lose your 30 or lose your 40, go to specialists and diet and trainers, and you're not in the season. You're not on planes. You're not going out to Gibson's in Chicago. You're not going out to Smith and Malinsky's in New York. You're not going to those places, and McCormick and Schmick's and things like. So yeah, I mean, he's lost the weight now, but let's see. Hopefully he can keep it off and keep going. Look, your sources are impeccable in New Orleans. What are they telling you?
Well, it's the same thing, that he's more than likely not going to play. He is dropping weight and making it all look good. But even if you're New Orleans, why would you roll him out on the court now? I mean, they're probably not going to make the playoffs now. I mean, Ingram, I had him, but Ingram's done his hamstring. That's a big out for them, huge out. He's probably going to be 2 weeks, maybe 3, and even when he's back, is he going to be back? It's like, why would you risk chucking Zion out there for maybe a 10 or 11, a 9 or a 10 playing game? I mean, I just don't. And then obviously going to that playing game at a high intensity as well. So I don't think he plays. I think it just waits till next season. But it is interesting to see. I mean, he definitely does have some weight issues that he needs to rectify. Do you ever have any guys, any of your teams that had weight clauses? You had Eddie Curry, right?
Yeah, Eddie Curry with Grover. I wasn't with any team that Eddie Curry went to.
Yeah. So
did you?
There was a few guys we had that would have like body weight clauses that would be like, you had to come into training camp at a certain weight, and like you said, they would they would just basically starve themselves a couple of weeks before camp, come in, be in decent shape. Who knows if it was just starvation or whatever it was, and then like you said, they put it all back on in the season. Because then the team was like, oh, yep, we got him here in shape. Look what I did. Strength conditioning are like, hey, we got this guy down to this weight. We're good. He fulfilled the contract or the bonus or whatever it was, or he doesn't get fined. And then, like you said, they stop monitoring it. And then, they're eating 4 meals on the plane and the Doritos and the M&Ms. And you're just like, you're doing the exact opposite of what you should be doing. You know what I mean? But it was all box ticking when I was early on in the league. It was. And we had a few guys that definitely had the weight clauses, which was tough. I guess that'd be called body shaming now. You probably can't do that anymore, bro, because someone will get offended. But when you're paying a guy $20 million and he can't get out on the court because he's overweight, I think body shaming is probably the least you should be allowed to do, right? It's like, man, so. But
82 games, 82 games in 29 NBA cities. If you have a weakness, it's going to find it on or off the court. 29 cities, 82 games plus playoffs, which for New Orleans means 82 games. And if you're going to have any type of weakness, it'll be found in an NBA season. So you can't hide. You cannot hide.
Yeah,
so
alcohol, drugs, sex, gambling, women, strip clubs, and food. They're the ones, right? So,
yeah.
And every one of the funny thing is that each city you go to's got one of those as their theme.
Yeah.
Like New Orleans is kind of like Mardi Gras out and about, and then you go to like some of these more sophisticated cities, like in New York, that's all the drug scene and all that bullshit, and then you got You go down, you maybe go to Vegas for preseason. That's gambling. So every one of them's like, we're known for this vice. Come and party
Yeah.
with us. And it's just like you can get caught up real quick. So yes, there are very many vices that will get you, and one city eventually is going to get you. It might be the cheese curds in Wisconsin. You know, it might be whatever it
Yeah.
is.
Been there, done that.
Yeah. It's eventually going to get you. All right, moving on to the NBA, NBL, and Australia. Battle for first and second, or not yet anyway, but the battle at the top of the table happened a couple of nights ago. Perth have beaten Melbourne in Melbourne. Melbourne been playing really well with Dellavedova and a few other guys there, Joe Luala-Chul. So they finally lost the game to Perth, and they have a big game coming tomorrow against Southeast Melbourne, or actually it's later on today. I think Perth are going to surge, pro. So we spoke about last week. They finally got the home games back there because of the vaccination issue. I have an update on that too, pro. Last week we spoke about that they had to get the booster to get in. Apparently now the government has told professional athletes you do not have to get the booster anymore if you don't want to. If you're up for it and you don't want to get it, no worries. We'll let you into Perth, but you're under strict lockdown in the hotel. You are not allowed to leave under any circumstances other than training or to the arena. You're not allowed to mingle with anyone. You're not allowed to go anywhere. If you are found to have breached, pro, you can get, the fines are outrageous. I don't know the number. I don't have the numbers on the top of my head, but I know the individual gets fined and then the club gets fined, and there's possible jail time if you breach the coronavirus restrictions, pro. So they've let them in. But safe to say you're not doing any sightseeing in Perth without your booster. So they've reneged, and that's actually fired up a lot of residents that still could not get back to their home state, that were stuck out of state. So the athletes, again, have to feel the brunt of it. It's not their fault. It is the government. So for everyone out there listening, don't blame the athletes. Blame the government. So that's a good one. But like I said, I think that Perth will surge. They have a home-heavy schedule towards the end of the season, and they're already in contention for first, second, third, somewhere up the top there. So they'll continue to win games there. So that'll be fun to watch. Now, the Adelaide 36ers not having a great year. They've spent, rumours were they're one of the highest spending teams in the league. They are bad. They are just not. They're not good. It's not fitting well. Kai Soto was there. They spent a lot of money on Mitch McCarron. They got Isaac Humphries was there but got hurt, so they've spent a lot of money. Dusty Hannahs is there. I don't know if you know who Dusty Hannahs is, but he was in the G League Pro. But anyway, they're struggling. So there was rumours that they were looking at an import, pro. They were looking at an import a couple of weeks ago, and this is the funniest excuse for not wanting to spend money I've ever heard in my life. Casper Ware came up for him, who was former Sydney King and Melbourne United player here in the NBL. Loves the NBL. He's fond of Australia, but he's playing in Russia at the moment.
Russia, right?
Playing in Russia at the moment. He was playing for a smaller team or a medium/smaller team. And there were negotiations about, apparently Adelaide talking to him, and from what I understand, from my reports were, Casper's agent was using Australia to leverage his client's price up in Russia, which is what you want to do. That's what your agent's paid to do. But I think some people got the wool pulled over their eyes here in Australia. But anyway, so Adelaide didn't end up signing Casper. There were negotiations. Apparently, blah, 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 blah. So Adelaide leaked to a journalist live on telecast. The reason why we did not want to sign Casper Ware was because there was a Russian buyout involved, and we just morally could not agree to give Russians money, pro. I'm not joking.
Wow.
That was the excuse.
Wow. Yeah, I've heard a lot of reasons for doing that.
it's one of the best. It's one of the best.
That's one of the best I've heard. Yeah, that's one of the best I've heard.
What can we use?
That's crazy.
What can we use to win the PR battle? I know there's a war in Russia and Ukraine. Let's use that. But the Adelaide 36ers, whoever thought of that, I don't know if it's come from ownership or whoever your GM is at the moment or your team, that is piss poor. For everyone out there, they were never going to close a deal with Casper Ware. I know for a fact that they were used for leverage. And what's happened overnight? He signed with CSKA Moscow, bro. So he's signed with one of the biggest teams in Europe in the Euro League. Whether they're allowed to play in that is a different story.
Yeah, they're not allowing any of the Russian teams to play right now, so they're suspending all of their games. They're playing the league, but they're not. They're playing domestic leagues. All the imports basically left the Russian teams, and they're playing their domestic league, but they're not playing in EuroLeague right now.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Should imagine getting on a flight in Russia to travel for a basketball game? Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah, I'm good.
And by the way, actually, there was a military drone that fell in Croatia, in my family's city in Croatia, in Zagreb, that came over all the NATO countries from Ukraine. It was an older drone, like an older technology that just malfunctioned, and it traveled all the way and dropped like a little crater bomb or something in Zagreb, Croatia. You can look that up for all you people out there, but that's an interesting one. But yes, Adelaide 36ers, that's poor PR battling. Don't use that as an excuse as to why you lost a player, that you're going to now sit on a moral high ground because we didn't pay the buyout to Russia, when that is not factual whatsoever. So do better there. Stats, useful or useless, pro. Lowest free throw percentage by an all-star post-all-star break. Courtesy of StatMuse, of course. Who do you think will be the worst right now in the league, pro?
Like overall or this year?
This year, well, you can go overall as well if you want, but this season, that's the reason why we're bringing this stat up. There's one player who's an all-star, and post-all-star break to now has the lowest free throw percentage of any all-star, post-all-star break in NBA history.
That's why I was asking if it was all-time or this year. So
all-time. But yeah, there is one player in that's leading that all-time.
Wow.
Which you'd never guess.
No, probably not. I mean, maybe LeBron or somebody, but no, I don't have a guess. Who is it?
No. Okay, so I'll give you the other names. I'll leave our man last that's playing right now. So Ben Wallace, 33.7%. That was 0506. 36.4% was Andre Drummond. 39.6% was Wilt Chamberlain. 40.8% Shaquille O'Neal. Leading all of those at 25% is Andrew Wiggins, pro.
Woo! Ouch.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought that.
Neither would I. I saw this and I was like, wow, it hasn't been a lot of games since All-Star break. What are we in, 10 games in or whatever we are?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, 25% from the line is concerning, especially as a wing, that he's a guy they have the Splash Brothers. He's a guy they generally have that they need to have him get on the rim more. I mean, he does like that mid-range jumper, but they need him to be that athletic wing that can get on the rim every now and then. And yeah, 25% is something that they definitely need to clean up coming into the playoffs.
Wow. I would say for that is useless to me because he's like a 70% free throw shooter. Like he's just in a funk, but wow. That is a 25%, but that's crazy. Those are some really bad free throw shooters he's in company with too. I mean, you got Shaq, you got Wilt, you've got Drummond, Ben Wallace. Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, it is tough. I think it's useful just to I think he's been a much like myself. He's been he's had some yips at times in Minnesota. He'd have phases, right, where he'd shoot 80% for a month and then shoot like 50. And then, so this is normal for him to be up and down, but not this disparity. I mean, 25%, it's got to, at some point, he's got to start thinking about it a little bit more than he is, and then that's when you get in some trouble, pro. So hopefully he can sort that out. All right. The Sixers starters didn't take a single shot in tonight's fourth quarter. That was against Brooklyn, pro. It was a touching tribute to Ben Simmons in his return to Philly. Useful or useless?
Sixers starters didn't take a single shot in the fourth quarter. Wow.
Well, because they're up by 30 or whatever they were up by.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'll say it's useful for the fact they got their ass kicked.
No, but the end part of it, pro, the kicker, is it's a touching tribute to Ben Simmons in his return to Philly.
Yeah, it's a good point. Good point. My bad.
Over your head.
I'll say it's useful. Yeah, way over my head. Yeah, I'd say it's useful.
You say it's useful still. I think it's a useless stat. It's just a slight jab at Ben Simmons for not shooting in fourth quarters, pro.
Oh, without question. I don't think it. Do you think it was really planned that way? Or do you think it just sort of happened that way?
What's that? Them to be up 30 and not play their starters?
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying. But I thought it's a funny little fucking stat though, if you think about it. But yeah, how about that though?
Yeah,
how about that?
That whole night was interesting. And I just don't understand how everyone's now getting on this thing like, oh, they're going to boo him. They're going to boo him. So what? Who gives a shit? It's one
Like
game.
if
They'll boo him, and then, they'll probably boo him in the playoff series they play him, and then they'll boo him for the rest of his career. It'll slowly get like lower and lower. And it's like Kyrie going back to Boston, KD going back to, we discussed this last week. It's like, just, it's not that big of a deal. It's like, you're going to get booed by the team that traded you or cut you or that you signed somewhere else, in free agency. It's just the reality of professional sports.
dude, you need a sense of humor in this game. You do, because look, at some point you're gonna have a bad night, a bad season, a bad month, whatever it is. You're gonna have it's something's gonna be bad. Something's gonna be written about you bad. Something's gonna be like, fans are gonna say some fucked up stuff. You're gonna have that guy in Philly, writing that shit on the board about about something, whatever. Like, you gotta have a sense of humor and you gotta have some thick skin with this thing, man. I mean, who cares what anyone else thinks of you? You're getting paid a shitload. And this guy, he's getting 30 plus million. Like, why would he give a fuck if they do boo him? And if you're booing him, all right, go ahead, you booed him. You feel good about yourself. Who cares? But these players, not all of them, but a lot of them just, man, are they sensitive about that stuff? Like, just get there and take it. I've seen this a lot where a player didn't do well in a city, gets traded. The next game or two, they find a million reasons not to go to the game. It's health, sick. I don't understand why, I just don't understand why they duck these games. Who cares? You're going to get booed, you know, it
It's
is
like
what it is.
college,
You move
right?
on.
Like college,
Yeah.
they boot every man and his dog that was a visiting team. So you just kind of got used to it, right? And then in the NBA, I think where we got pampered a little bit, where it's like, oh no, you can't boo. Like, why not? I mean, it is what it is. Like, I just feel like the media was fueling it even more by just saying, oh, he's going to get booed. Like, oh, the return of Ben, oh, they're going to come and boo. Oh, and then recording Philly fans in the street yelling and screaming and swearing. It's like, no shit, they're going to do that. Like, that's not just Philly. Like, Philly are obviously on steroids with that shit, though. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Like, they they'd boo anyone. The Bill Burr skit is still one of the best of all time in Philly. So I urge you to go on YouTube and type in Bill Burr Philly because it's hilarious. But
Yeah.
it is what it is. It's like, it sucks. As long as, you get in there, you get the win like they did, you can leave basically with two fingers to the sky. So I don't think it was that huge of a deal. I think it was definitely made out kind of more by the media. But I tell you what, if it does go to a playoff series, it's going to be, it's going to be a big deal. It is. It's going to be, you just hope no one does anything stupid. That's what you hope with all this kind of shit going on. But we'll see how that goes.
Mhm. Yeah, I don't think anybody would do anything stupid, but you never know out there. It's just, hey, look, it's a game. You're just playing a game. People are going to talk shit. Players are going to talk shit. Fans are going to talk shit. Like I said, you're going to have some great games. You're going to have some terrible games. No one ever comes out of this thing unscathed throughout their whole career. But a lot of these players, though, man, they become super fucking sensitive when like somebody writes something about you, fan says something to you. Like, I could, we talked about the line that cannot be crossed, but like in general, if you just get booed or whatever, like, who cares? It's fucking basketball. Like you said, you played in college. You've dealt with that shit on the road, and a lot of these guys do play in college and they've dealt with it. But man, I'll tell you what, the skin is completely fucking thin on a lot of these guys. You just laugh, have a sense of humor about it. But you're right, the media does fuel it up, and it's like they think it's like the biggest thing in the world until the game's played, and then they'll forget about it for a fucking year.
Yeah,
That's
the
the
next
thing
thing.
too. Like, yeah, they just go to the next thing. And yeah, I watched the game. They got their ass kicked, but hey, it is what it is.
Kyrie was really good. Both ends.
Yeah.
Both ends of the floor. Defensively,
Yeah.
he was. I don't think him and Harden get along too well, but he was picking him up full court. And I was like, who is this Kyrie Irving defensively? He played really well. He showed me something defensively too that I haven't seen before. So they're looking good. They're looking good. So I think they're going to start to surge a little bit, and they'll be right in the mix. All right, last one. The Nuggets have as many wins as the Sixers, Bulls, Mavs, and Celtics. They're missing their second and third best players, bro, for the whole season. Useful or useless?
That's totally useful. They've been playing really well, and it goes like you've been on Jokic all year. You've been on him for 2 years of the show, and you love the guy, and for good reason. And he's he's so valuable to that team. And Mike Malone's such a really good coach, just grinding out games. And you know how it is. This game isn't really much about coaching. It's more about your talent in most cases. If you have the talent, you're going to win. If you don't have the talent, you're most likely going to lose. But here, they don't really have the talent. And here they are, like, sticking around and really making a difference with guys like, Monty Morris and Brian Forbes and Will Barton, and of course Jokic and Gordon, Jeff Green and DeMarcus Cousins. Like, they're getting it done with, they're missing, obviously they're missing Murray and they're missing Porter. I mean, imagine missing, how many teams could you name that could miss two of their top three players? And especially Murray, who handles the ball. Like, Jokic handles the ball, but he handles it differently. If you're getting a ball dominant guard that you're missing, and you're missing another scorer, an athletic kid like Porter, like, it's hard, man, to really survive. And they're really hanging in there.
Well, yeah, I mean, you equate it to the Warriors. So you say, okay, take out Draymond and Clay. See what you had last season, right? You know what I mean? Like, so that's what people need to understand. Take away two of your best three players. And any team, Tatum and Brown, or Tatum and maybe Smart or someone like that, like, you're struggling, man. Like, you're really struggling. And we've seen what happened to Brooklyn. Jeez, I fell off a cliff. So to do that, I mean, he's tough, man, and he just creates such a calm around all guys playing. They know they cut hard, they're going to get it, back cut, this, that. I mean, it just seems so simple, but it's been phenomenal to watch. I think Mike Malone deserves a lot of credit too. He's done a fantastic job there with the hand that they've been dealt. Haven't really had a healthy team for a long, long time, and they just continue to be, getting wins they probably shouldn't have, that they're not picked to win, and they're going to be a good team in the playoffs. They're going to battle. So especially with that altitude in Denver, and they're not going to be an easy beat no matter where they finish. So I've been a big fan, and I think that is a very useful stat considering, who they're missing. So what do you got for us this week?
All right, Bogues. So we're going to revolve everything around the Minnesota Timberwolves. Since nobody else wants to do it, we might as well do it.
Might as well.
All right, so the Timberwolves will play themselves out of the play-in zone and finish in the top 6 in the West. Fact or fake news?
Ooh.
So let's take a look at the standings right now. So in the West, they are currently sitting at 38-30. They got 14 games left. They're 15 and a half out of first. Denver is at 13 out. So they're 2.5 behind Denver. And Denver's got 15 games left. So, yeah, so they've got about the same amount of games left. They got 2.5. Will they get out of the play-in and beat out Denver in that spot? After we basically joined the Denver for Life fan club. Now we're gonna try to we're gonna try to play that Jedi mind trick.
I got to fake news it. I still have more confidence in Denver today with just consistency than I do Minnesota. But like I said, Minnesota's slowly starting to grow on me. They're slowly starting to show me something, but they need to show me a little bit more. But I think they've had a good year. I don't think they get to 6 though, bro. You?
I'm gonna say fake news as well. I'm a big fan of theirs, don't get me wrong, but you give Mike Malone 2.5 games. This roster's been together for a while. They've been down in the dumps with this roster all year for the most part. And, and they're pretty steady. They've been pretty steady. I say 15, 16, 14, 15 games is too few to get to that 2.5 spot. So I'm going to say fake news. All right, Bogues. Again, Minnesota based. Anthony Edwards is a top 10 player, 26 and under in the NBA right now. And now I will give you some names. All right. So is he in the top 10? I have this database that I created that I could pull up rankings and stuff like that. And here are the players that are under 26 and under right now. You got Doncic, Giannis, Jokic, Tatum, Booker, Morant, Donovan Mitchell, Trae Young, DeAndre Ayton, Jaylen Brown, Julius Randle, Bam Adebayo, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Ingram, Sabonis, Edwards, Levine, and I'll stop it at that. That's 17 names. All right, you know what? Ben Simmons is in there too. Oh, Ben Simmons and Towns are in there as well. So,
Is he top 10 under
would you
26? No, fake news.
fake news?
Fake
Okay.
news. Nah, I think he's fringe. He's teetering somewhere. You could argue to have him as a 9, 10 maybe, but I don't have him in my 10 at the moment, not with that list of names. I think he needs to show me a little bit in the playoffs first. He shows me something this season in the playoffs, maybe I'll rethink it, but I think he's somewhere between, I'd say, 10 and 14, somewhere in that realm, in my opinion.
I agree. Fake news as well. And I got him right around there. So here's some names, and you tell me, would you take, like, for age, where he is and what he's done so far? You know, obviously how young the kid is and what he's doing now and all that. All right, so let's say Julius Randle, Jaylen Brown, Zach LaVine, Sabonis, and Edwards. So those 5. Where would you put him in that sort of list of 5? Because those are the guys that are sort of like, I think those guys are competing, in my opinion, you know, probably for to get into like the 12th spot. Like, I think those guys are like 12 to 17 or so, you know. So who would you put? So you got Sabonis, you've got Randall, you've got Brown, you've got Levine, and you've got Edwards.
Ooh, it's
Where
a
would
tough
you
one,
put
yeah.
him?
I think, I mean, you could argue every one of those guys, right? Like, I think it's close. I mean, I'd probably have, gun to my head, I'd say I'd probably go Brown, then Edwards, and then it's a crapshoot. Other than that, really, I mean, I think Julius, I would have had him there last season. I probably would have had him at the top of that list last season, but I think he's lost a lot with everything that he's kind of gone through this season. I don't think he's been the best teammate, the best leader at times. So I think that's hurt him a little bit, and then had a horrible year. And you go as far as your star player takes you. So I think I'd have it out of Edwards and Brown, but I'd still probably put Brown on top just because they're playing so well.
Okay, yeah, me too. I would say fake news. I have him right around 16 or 17, but it is pretty cool to go to those lists and figure out who you like. And again, it's just another way of just explaining how hard it is. Like, when you say a guy like, you know, like a Damian Lillard, like Damian Lillard's a great player, but like you put him into the top 5 conversation and you can't. It's impossible. And you say, way. Oh, yeah, Damian Lillard. I said, yeah, Damian Lillard's a great fucking player. Puts up fucking mega numbers. But to get into that top 5, you know, if you're talking about overall, and now we're talking about age stuff, but to get into that list, and, you know, Edwards is a great player, and all those players that we just listed is a great player. But in the top, you know, 26 and under list, you know, if you're really thinking about that, like, how are you going to break off with, I mean, Doncic, Giannis, you know, Joker. Those are the top 3 in any order that you want. And then you got guys like Ja Morant's there, and you've got Tatum there now. You've got Booker. You know, I mean, that's like 8 names right off the bat to try to get in that top 10. We haven't even talked about Trae Young yet, or DeAndre Ayton yet, or, you know, guys like that. You know, Bam Adebayo, he's doing really well. So it just goes to show you how much talent's in the league. And when you just throw out these names about, oh, this guy could be a top 20 player. Well, you sure about that? Like, you fucking watch these players in this league and look at their stats and look what they do and look at their age and look how they impact the game. It's, you know, it's pretty cool exercise to just sort of go through. Actually, it's not cool at all. It's probably pretty geekish, and I got no fucking life, but it is a pretty interesting deal to look that up. All right. Last one. Minnesota can make a conference final in the next 5 years. Fact or fake news?
That's a tough
one.
Not
win it.
Make it. Yeah, I gotcha. So you got to look at who they're trumping. I think the Grizzlies are going to be up. Grizzlies will be up there for a number of years. I think the Warriors still stretch out probably 2 to 3 more years, maybe more. The Jazz, depending on Dallas. Denver should be squeaking out another 4 or 5. The Clippers get healthy, and you know the Lakers are going to try to do something not after this next season, the season after. And then Spurs. I'm going to go the under. I'm going to say fake news. I think I'm going to go fake news. They got to show it to me. They got to show me they belong in the playoffs first, bro. They got to show me they can get to a first round, possibly to a second before we can start talking conference finals. But 5 years is a long crystal ball. It's a tough one. But if I had to gun to head, I'm going to say fake news. No conference finals for the Wolves in 5 years.
I'm going to say fact. And here's where I think it's going to happen. In the next 5 years, I think the top 3 teams, and now look, they need a little luck to get in there, no doubt about it. I think the top 3 teams in the West in 5 years from now are most likely going to be Dallas, Memphis, and Minnesota, of all places, right? No big name in there. But I think with those young players that they have, and Dallas is going to have cap room. They already have a good core of players, and they'll have money to spend, and they can get somebody else. If they keep Luka and all that together, they'll be a top 3 team. I think Minnesota, with their young talent, and they're not killing it salary cap wise yet, and they could still acquire a decent player or two. They have a chance just because of their young guys they have. They stay injury free, knock on wood. Maybe you redo Russell's contract where it's a little bit less of his next deal, and then allows you to a little bit of freedom to sort of sign some players or to do something like that. I think that's big. And then Memphis, obviously, with the young players they have, if they can keep Ja there and then he could stay healthy, that's the biggest thing with Ja Morant to me, though, Bogues. Like the way he plays, it's very it's a lot like Westbrook or even Zion, where he puts so much fucking pressure on his limbs when how he dunks and how he changes directions and changes speed. I worry about his health. But if they could keep him healthy with the young players that they have, and I think that those guys, look, the Lakers it's gonna take a while. I think in 5 years it's gonna really be hard for, I think Utah is gonna disband at some point. Like, I think they're going to break it up. Golden State is going to be a shell of themselves in 5 years from now. I think that they're going to have to go another direction. And I don't know, how hard it is to get right back on top. And I think it's really tough, especially with the money that they have to spend. San Antonio was they were a different beast because, Duncan didn't take all this money, and their salary cap, they could play around with it a little bit, like Golden State really can't play around with their salary cap. They've got those 3 guys making a fucking shitload of money, and it's really hard for them to maneuver. Utah is going to disband. I don't know how long Denver could sort of keep this going. The Clippers, those guys are going to be gone by then. Kawhi is going to be somewhere else. George will probably be somewhere else. And I think that these guys, if they could stay together in these 3 cities, I think that they're going to have enough to at least challenge for a conference final. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm full of shit. Phoenix Suns are very good, but I want to see them without Chris Paul and where they go from there. Now, I think those players are going to get much better. Like I think Booker and Ayton have another gear to go with as far as what they can do. But I think that Minnesota can definitely have a legit chance in the next 5 years, probably 3 to 5. It's not going to happen this year. It's not going to happen next, most likely. But if those guys could take their lumps and keep getting better and keep just battling through this, I think they'll have a chance for a conference final. They won't win.
The one thing you're forgetting is the city of Minnesota is in a hotbed for free agents that want to stay there. So all it takes is for Edwards or Town to eventually want out, and then things could change. So we'll watch that space. And shout out to Memphis Grizzlies, by the way, that their rebound was quick. Usually, these small market teams, it takes a little bit longer than it has, a la Sacramento. But Memphis were only in the conference finals, years before, what was that, 2014-15. So, and had that really dominant, really good regular season team, grit and grind, and they're back at the top now. So it's good to see them back that quickly. One thing I want to finish on, Pro, we touched on our Rick Barry thing last week, and our producer Steve has given us a letter. He's actually a referee, Steve, Pro. If you didn't know, he's actually a refs local basketball games here. And I thought it was a good letter, so I'm going to read it out. So here's his thoughts on everything that we discussed. So just offering my thoughts on issues raised last week's show, the NBA officiating. This is from the perspective of a referee working at a domestic grassroots level. The issue of NBA players flagrantly traveling has been a pet peeve of mine and many I work with for many years. A situation, if anything, is becoming more commonplace each season. And it has serious flow-on effects on the way the game is being played, right down the line from the elite levels to those where I'm working. We are constantly seeing NBA players travel. Clear, obvious, often deliberate violations of what is supposed to be basic fundamentals in our game. I have even seen vision on multiple occasions with highest profiles. LeBron is a big offender where the ball is received inbound following a successful basket. We've mentioned this, pro. The player holding the ball takes multiple steps before even bothering to dribble. There's a notorious one of LeBron doing that at the half-court line. I think that was against the Utah Jazz when Bogdanovich was guarding him, where he just picked the ball up mid-dribble, just with 3 steps and then kept dribbling. Continue on. This is now being compounded by FIBA adopting the practice of zero step into their rules. The zero step is another abomination brought about by NBA players being allowed to travel constantly, presumably in the name of making a play look more spectacular. Prior to, say, the 2000s, we didn't see this happening. Nowadays, we see it everywhere, and so rather than emphasize the requirements of enforcing travel calls, FIBA basically reneged from the pressure from the NBA, and they've changed the rules. Here we are. If the aim was to stop NBA players from being pinged for traveling anytime they played in the World Cup or an Olympics, it was successful. I'll say that much. So why is this an issue at domestic levels? Every kid coming through the ranks, every young person with dreams of being the next big thing, and even those who just want to play the game for fun, see this behavior at those elite levels, note the complete lack of rule enforcement, and naturally assume they can get away with it themselves. Every time a LeBron James takes a half a dozen steps before a dribble, every time a James Harden takes that extra step or two for his famous step back, every time this isn't called, it makes life for domestic officials all over the planet just that much more difficult. Oftentimes at the levels I work, we're not trying to officiate a game, but also trying to educate young players on how to play properly. We need elite players to do better and just abide by the basics. It cannot be that hard, surely. On the subject of illegal screens, it just goes on to say that a player can set a screen, but if the official has to divert their attention momentarily to anything else, they can reposition in a way that the breach of the rules is undetected. Fair point, Steve. So basically saying that a ref has a lot to look at. That's how guys like myself can get away with holding and grabbing. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was an interesting letter. That's from Steve, who does our production here at Rogue Bogues. What are your thoughts on it, Pro? We kind of discussed this, that it will go correlate down to or drip down to the juniors and then have them hoisting, half-court threes and step-back threes and traveling and thinking that it's the normal because their idol does it, right, bro? So I think it's a valid point to hear from someone who's day-to-day, every weekend, refereeing grassroots.
I totally agree. I totally agree. It trickling down is the problem. Look, if it happens at the NBA level, the highest of high levels, and it stays there, all right, I could see that. I'm not a big fan of it, but okay. The problem is every kid wants to emulate that. And then when you're trying to teach, and you're trying to teach a young kid, like, no, that's a travel. But he'll pull out his phone or she'll pull out their phone and they'll show you an NBA player doing it 8 times the game before and it never was called. So it goes, well, if they get away with it, I want to do it. And they don't understand that it's a different level and it's just different. And like I could see not wanting to foul out a superstar and maybe not calling the foul that was a clear foul or giving them a foul when they go to the basket. But the travels for sure need to be they need to be called equally across the board. It gets to be a little bit much. The step back, the step back deal to me, giving them 3 steps on the step back, and now what happens, Bogues, in my opinion, like when I was talking to NBA referees 10, 12 years ago about travel calls, now, like, it was a black and white thing. It was like, look, this is what you can do. This is what you can't do. Now they're saying on the gather, you have 2 steps after the gather, which before the gather, when you dribble the ball and before the gather, you can get 3 or 4 steps up before you get to your gather, and then another 2. You can get 5 or 6 steps. It just, to me, there's too much gray area with traveling, and the young kids do it, and it just teaches bad fundamentals, and it's ruining our game at the lower levels because of the fact that, and then the referees, some call it, some don't. So it's not really like the rule that's being affected. It's, who's calling it and who's protecting the rules and actually abiding by them, and who's just letting everything go because, again, they watch all these players do it the night before. So, yeah, I think it's a problem. I think it needs to be, I don't think it's ever going to be dealt with, but I think it needs to be dealt with because it's tough. The FIBA thing's pretty interesting too. Their travel rules compared to the United States.
Yeah, but like Steve said, they've tweaked it. They've started to, like in those big tournaments where the Team USA plays, they tweak it, and that's the frustrating thing. I think the most disrespectful one is the one on the inbounds where a player just literally catches the ball and just takes 4 steps and just basically is just daring the referee, like call me for a backcourt travel on LeBron James. Like, you're not going to do that. They're the disrespectful ones. Like, a little shuffle of the feet. Everyone does that every now and then. It's perfectly normal. You get away with it sometimes you don't. But the blatant disrespecting of the rules, however we let the game come to that, is not right. And it sounds like a get off my grass rant, get off my lawn rant, but the rules are there for a reason, because if you don't have the rules, let's say there is 2 or 3 blatant travels that have happened throughout the game. We're not going to call them because it's LeBron. And then the game-winning play is a travel. And he makes the shot and they don't call it. Oh, we haven't caught it all game. Well, you've caught it for like the 15th guy that just got off the bench in garbage time. And it happened in the playoff series. There was that infamous playoff series against the Washington Wizards when LeBron was with the Cavs, where he was doing the infamous crab dribble, where he'd power up and then take 2 or 3 steps and then he hit a game winner doing it, and that's where it gets murky, and then that affects betting, that affects GMs getting fired, coaches getting fired, guys like Pro getting fired, me getting traded. You know what I mean? Like, the ramifications of those plays can be huge. So I think it's very, very important we stick to the rules. And I like the letter from Steve. So I thought, we can hear from someone. We're both obviously involved in the pro game more often than not. But to see someone every weekend working the local community leagues and refereeing and seeing what kids are doing, he knows. And if he's seeing it as a problem, you feel for administrators because, like you said, I should be able to do that because LeBron does it. Well, yeah, but the rule book here in black and white, I don't need the rule book. Look at my phone. LeBron's doing it. And then that's where you're like, okay, it's a tough argument to win that against a child that has a phone or computer or whatever. So hopefully administrators out there can clean that up because it definitely needs to be fixed before it's too late, pro, and it's anarchy out there and we can just basically kick the ball and we can run out of bounds. You can step out of bounds, just not your whole shoe, and you can goaltend, but just not all the time. And you can have 6 players on the court one week. Just don't make sure it's not a habit. We want to be, we want to make sure that everyone's playing, so stick to the rules, people. That's my point.
Hey, Bogues, look out your fucking window. Trust me, it's anarchy out there anyway. So,
yeah.
Just
that is life.
It on.
Yeah. Thanks to our politicians. Anyway, that is it. Have a great week, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Rogue Bogues 57 in the books. Pro, take it easy. Don't eat too much. We'll see you next week.
I'll see you guys. Thanks.